Well, we're going to end today appropriately with a look at the manager's closeout recommendations for our fiscal year 2020 budget. Now, as many of you know, Arlington's fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th each year. And right now, the county's in the second quarter of the fiscal year 2021 budget. Now, this is the time of the year where the manager usually makes recommendations on how the board might allocate any money unspent from the 2020 fiscal year, which ended June 30th of 2020. Next month, the board will vote on those recommendations and will also give the manager guidance to start building the 2022 budget. Now, obviously, the budget projections from back in January, February went right out the window with everything, and the managers gave some recommendations back in, I believe it was April or May, but then came back again a few weeks ago with some new recommendations. So where are we now?
Okay, those went out the window too. Not exactly. But where we are, and it's so unusual. I think this is about my 25th budget. And generally when we're at this point, we're looking at carryover, and we've got some money, and we often put it into affordable housing. We often have some of it go forward for the next budget. I've never been in a situation like this where we're in the second quarter of this budget year and we're facing a $28 to $38 million budget gap. And we have to balance our budget. We cannot run on a deficit like the federal government. So we've got to close that. And of course, the longer you wait in a fiscal year to decide how to do it, the harder it is. You can't make it all up in the last couple of weeks. So we're looking at a lot of things, but one of them is using carryout. So the manager recommended the major chunk of it to go to closing that gap. And then the rest of it, about another $6 million, going into reserves that could be used to help close gaps or to help handle things next year or things that come up, because hopefully we're going to get some federal funding to help us out. I think we will. It's a big question of how much it'll be and when it will be. And we've got to be able to have funds to kind of get our way through that. So talk, as I've said to you before, this is your first budget. They're not usually like this.
No, but it's really a tough situation. It's absolutely understandable why, right? COVID has really affected the budget, affected the our confidence in getting the tax revenue that we counted with. Now, among all this relatively, gloomy news, there is also one good news. You got a piece of good news that, for example, residential property taxes have been coming in. They didn't break off. They came in at a very high percentage, like 97, 98%. That's good to start with. However, we still don't know what the commercial tax base will do, and we can easily extrapolate and expect that the commercial tax base will be affected. And then there are other revenues that are beyond taxation and smaller tax, like meals taxes and transit occupancy taxes. Our economy in many places hurts right now, so the government revenue is breaking off, and as our chair mentioned, the projected gap at the end of the year is somewhere between $27 and $38 million. So probably we'll land somewhere in the middle of that. Also, the manager did two things that are important to underscore. First, early in the process, the county administration, the manager has tried to actually reduce costs. We have a hiring freeze, etc. This already yielded some results that gives us the possibility right now to still be able to steer that boat with some, with some tranquility and not being completely in red alert mode. That was important, and I think that was successful until now. The second thing that he did is he put in his proposal some contingency funding for everything that COVID will still be throwing at us, and given the fact that the federal government has been so incredibly unpredictable with forthcoming with help and support, and at the same time we have also our Arlington public school system, because which also is running a deficit. And we had yesterday a session with our colleagues from the Arlington County School Board for Arlington Public Schools. And we saw that, they can come by, but we have to think also about the next year. So I believe that we are now in a very caution-driven process, and we will be double checking and triple checking what we spend, how we spend it, and what implications this will have, not only to closing this budget, as the chair mentioned, this has to be balanced, but also next year's budget. For everybody out there, our citizens, this means that we invite them to really look at this, to really express their priorities, taking into account all the stressors that we have right now in the system. This is a very different conversations that we had in normal years without COVID.
And then what is the outlook? Obviously, there's going to be some belt tightening, the proverbial belt tightening to close out 2020 for the rest of fiscal year 2021. Then what is our outlook for fiscal year 2022? I realize nobody has a crystal ball in front of them to see how long the pandemic related revenues will be down. But are you anticipating another kind of rough budget year?
Yes. In a word, I don't know how much time we have here. Yes. I mean, we're anticipating we should start to get to a slow recovery. Hopefully we'll get a vaccine, but it's going to be a long time getting out of this this kind of hole that we're in. So, the good news is, it's not as bad as it could be. It's pretty bad, but it could be a lot worse. We're actually in an okay shape. I find myself worrying a lot about other places in this country where they have the same kinds of challenges and don't have the same resources. And we have been, as Takas mentioned, we're being very cautious, and that's good. And we need to be planning for next year and knowing that we need some reserves and some contingencies because we're not sure what that year is going to bring. We do think it's going to get better, but slowly. It's not like we're going to just jump out of this. Some businesses probably will never come back. And then there are people who are going to continue long-term, maybe dealing with some unemployment. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns out there, and a lot of issues that we need to be prepared for. So I think all in all, we're in a good spot given the situation we're in. But it's not going to be easy, and we're not going to go back to normal for quite some time.
Yeah, and this is also an invitation to revisit our priorities and put the money where our speech is, right? So and there is real value in supporting right now the most vulnerable Arlingtonians. We talked a lot about this in this wrap-up conversation. These are all this money, all this support means also making these households more resilient. The support we provide to small businesses, yes, some will fold. Unfortunately, they will, but we will try to avoid that. So we will save several ones that otherwise, without the support, would fold. So all this is accumulated capital that will pay off later when we will be starting to get out of this situation. Plus, this shows again that the earlier we commit to a diversified economy, to we solve our issues with equity, liabilities, etc., the more resilient we are, and that pays off. And when we have stressful years like the one that we have this year and the one that we will see coming next year, so we are in this. We are all in this really together, and that means that we invite everybody to work with us to have a budget that really works under the circumstances we are.
All right.
So thank you, Kara. We'll see where we get.
All right. Well, on that note, that will bring us to the end of this month's County Board Wrap-Up. Libby, Takas, thank you both very much for joining us today. Please join us again next month for another discussion with the County Board members of some of the key decisions they'll be making at the November meeting. Till then, stay safe. And remember to vote.
I was going to say, vote. Everybody vote.